high performance networking. For some reason, here we go. All right. So, you know, networking is a natural, simple way to grow business. It really helps to give you the opportunity to meet folks in a little bit more casual setting than your traditional sales setting. And we've known that, but, you know, it doesn't seem that we do it all the time, or we don't have a plan to do it. And that's really what I want to kind of focus on today. I'm going to give you, as we go through this, 8 rules to kind of keep in mind as you're going about networking and trying to make the most of it. A lot of times I think people feel like this poster when they walk into some networking events, because you don't know a lot of people and you feel like the cat walking in front of a bunch of German shepherds, and it's it's a scary experience. And I can see that for a couple reasons, and I coach salespeople that have had and have told me these fears, and that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you a couple of give you an exercise and some techniques to kind of help with that, which also can be used in other areas of your sales career or marketing career. So why is networking and referral marketing so important? What are some of the reasons? And I'm going to give you a couple that I hear all the time. Number one, standard prospecting techniques aren't as effective today as they were. I mean, technology has changed where everyone has call screening and they have voicemail, and it's really hard to get a hold of people. And, you know, I've experienced that myself, because I think I've shared before for those of you who've been on, but, you know, in my business, I'm out selling all the time as well to work with clients to provide sales training and coaching to them. So networking is a much better way to reach them. And it also goes that clients are more knowledgeable and less trusting today because of all the information on the internet. And that's another reason, once again, as I stated earlier, networking is kind of a little bit of a different situation, so some of the defenses are down if you do it right. And that's what we're going to talk about as we go forward. And keep this rule in mind as you go forward. And this applies in sales, and I think you all will agree with this. You know, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. And that's kind of, you know, that's just a bedrock of sales. I mean, I understand that technology now, you can buy things by pushing buttons, but with insurance and other business-to-business type of sales and consumer as well, there's still that like, trust, and know factor that's going to be the difference between you and your competition. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So let's jump into the first rule of networking, in my opinion, and it's the right mindset. And it's kind of what I was talking about earlier with that slide with the cat walking in front of the dogs. Is you gotta relax. You know, it isn't going to be the end of the world. You want to be efficient with your time, but some of these networking groups, you know, you've got to try to see if it's a good fit or not. And we'll talk a little bit later on some things to maybe focus on, but you got to relax. Don't get yourself in a lather prior to the meeting. And make a contract with yourself that you're going to follow through on any behaviors that you set. And this is like as we're getting ready for the Super Bowl right now, and you know the teams are practicing, the one thing that is paramount is they are practicing behaviors for that game, so when they get in the game, then it's muscle memory and they're not worried about what they're going to do. Same type of thing for you, not only in networking but any sales endeavor. And then you got to feel financially independent. And I know all of you are going to be at different stages with this, and I don't mean arrogance, but I mean confidence that you have a good book of business and you're doing well, and you want to project that when you're talking with people. Think about it this way yourself: when you're buying something, do you want to buy from somebody who's really desperate? I know, on the surface that sounds like, oh yeah, I might get a great deal, but usually there's more hidden problems with that. So keep that financial independent feeling as you go into these events, but it's the right mindset, and I'm going to give you some more information on that as we go forward. Here's some of the things that really tear down that mindset, and I want you to stop having these negative self-talk points. All right, don't think about, you don't want to look too salesy. That's what we're going to talk about, doing it a little different way, so you're not being ultra aggressive. You don't like mingling. I get it. You got other things to do, but once again, as we talk later, if we set behaviors and a plan with those behaviors, you can focus on that and not worry about mingling with people you don't know. Sometimes if you're at some of these networking events, you might get the feeling that makes you look desperate. I think that's a misnomer, but there are salespeople that I've worked with that coach. That's what they've told me, and that's where all this information comes. Over the years that I've worked with people, these are the things they've shared with me. And I hear this a lot. I'm an introvert and I'm shy, and that's great. But I know some of the best salespeople that consider themselves introverts because they focus on a plan and on behaviors, and they'll do those, and it gets them outside of their comfort zone. It could be a total waste of time, especially if you don't approach it right. And that's what I've talked through with some of the folks, is that, what you were doing, I don't think was garnering you any type of result. So I can see why you thought it was a waste of time. What if we take a different approach? Maybe check it out that way and see if that helps. And some of your boss is going to make you go, so you got a bad thought about that. I don't want to go because my boss is telling me I got to. Once again, if it's done right and you get in the right networking groups or situations, I think it can be a wonderful way to grow your business, and it's an annuity, because the more folks that you meet and help through the networking efforts, the more that they'll refer you to. All right, so here, instead of the negative self-talk, is some of the high-performance beliefs that we've worked on that have helped people overcome the negative self-talk. I'm here in Louisville, and I know now things, economy's picked up a little bit, but even through 2008 and 9 when I was doing this, I believe that people will continue to buy. And I think you got to have that belief that if you find the right scenario, they're going to be willing to buy. You got to think abundance, not scarcity. And too many people get caught up in, well, I've got a small territory, or they have a better territory. That's just negative thoughts that aren't going to help you at all. I don't know how else to put it any plainer. You got to think abundance, not scarcity. Just like you're taking time today to be on this webinar, you should be continuing to look to sharpen your skills. And I think that's imperative for sales professionals to get better. It always have to be working on that. And once again, I use the reference of football with Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks. That's what these guys, they've been practicing all year, and they're still practicing now. Now, it may be more specific to game plans and tendencies, but they're still running through the drills because they want to sharpen their skills. And you got to keep in mind, to climb any mountain, it starts with a step. It doesn't matter how high or how long, it starts with the first step. And that's up to you to decide to do that. And I believe that you should work hard, but have fun. And if you're not having fun, then you got to look and say, is this the right field for me? And I truly believe that. I'm not advocating for anybody to leave their job, but if it's not fun, life's too short. So you need to find something where you can have fun, but don't misunderstand that having fun doesn't mean hard work. To be successful in anything, it takes hard work. I know the media like to play it up that there's these overnight successes, but that's not the case, and that's not true. So getting the right mindset, getting the negative self-talk out, and bringing in the high-performance beliefs. So I want to share with you what David Sandler, the gentleman who founded our business, called the IR theory. And this is another, he brought psychology to sales in the first place, but here's another belief that he had on a theory. And we're going to do a group exercise when I'm done here to try and really bring home the point. But the I and the R stand for role and identity, okay? And each one of us in our world, we play different roles. We are mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, salespeople, whatever it might be, but we play different roles, right? And in those roles, we are going to have things that don't go quite right, right? We're going to have adversity, all right? But we also have an identity. And too many times we let our role or success in a certain role at a given time reflect our identity. And David Sandler believed to really be successful in anything, you got to keep your identity at a 10, 1 out of 10, 10 being the best. All right. Now I know we're human, it's going to fall a little bit, but it's still, if you can separate the role from the identity, just because you had a bad sales day doesn't mean that you're a bad person. And for those of you that have kids or pets, they don't care, right? And that's how you have to look at it, is your identity should always be at a 10. So I want to do a quick little group exercise, and I'm not sure, I'm thinking all of you are not driving. If you are, obviously this is going to be difficult, and I want you to do this when you're driving. But I'm going to ask you, if you could, to take out a dollar bill if you have it, or some type of, if you don't have a dollar, 5, 10, 20, whatever you have as far as a green monetary value, if you could take that out as I walk through this and put it in front of you and hold in your hands, all right? So I'm going to give everybody a minute to do that. And I know it's a little different on a webinar, but please bear with me and let's try it. So if you have that dollar bill or whatever it is in front of you, could we all agree that this is a piece of currency, right? So that's its identity. Identity is currency. And its role, when you have money, the role is to buy things, right? So that's its role. Now, if you take that dollar bill in your hand and you crumple it up, all right, and step on it, you can put it down if you're sitting down, step on it, all right? So its role is getting beat up really bad, right? You take it and uncrinkle it, you can still give that to someone for a cup of coffee, right? Because it didn't, even all that adversity that it took didn't affect its identity. And that's how I want you to think about the IR theory. If you can separate the role from your identity and keep your eye at a 10, it's going to help you in sales and just with your outlook on life, all right? And, you know, having been in sales a long time, a positive outlook or identity goes a long way. I've worked with folks that have really turned things around just by changing that and really understanding that separation. So keep that in mind as we go forward here. That's another part of the right mindset. All right. So rule number 2 is interrupt the networking pattern. So by that I mean when you go to networking events, okay, I'll speak for me. When I go to networking events, I inevitably see that those several people that are buzzing around the room and are throwing cards in your face to just say, hey, if you need any help with insurance, give me a call. They don't know me, they haven't really talked with me, and they're just throwing things, at me. So I don't know if they think they're getting paid by card or what it is, but that's kind of the norm. Or people huddle together in groups that they have some acquaintances, okay? And I understand the lure for that, being around people I get it, right? But here's what I'm asking you to do. Avoid the obvious, and I'm going to give you some open, open conversations or conversation starters that you can use. But don't throw a card at someone. First, ask them what they do. And you're thinking, Vince, I don't want to do that because some people are going to just drone on. Yeah, there will be a few, and you'll get pretty good at understanding that quickly and moving away. But if you change that pattern and start asking, you're going to find that people are going to take more of an interest in what you do, usually. The ones that don't, that's not a good networking partner anyway, so move on from them. So avoid the obvious, keep in the back of your mind trying to connect others, okay? Because that's the key. Think about it. When someone's giving you a referral or giving you a lead, what is your thought process in regards to them? It's going to be positive. You're going to try and help them. So you want to know more about what they do and what you can do to help them. It's that win-win type of thing. And if you focus on connecting others, you're going to have more people coming back to you. You're going to have more IOUs, if you will, in the game, with more people coming back to you to help you. All right? And just like you're financially independent, you got to keep that eye at a 10. You're successful already. You don't need the business. You need the right business and the right opportunities. Okay? Yeah, I forgot to mention my fancy graphics there that expands. So here's some things to keep in mind with pattern interrupt. Ask people what they do. Dig deeper into what their job really is about, right? And take an interest so that you have a better understanding and can make the right match. Once again, connecting others. That's when you'll truly be an expert in networking, is if you take that type of approach, because it's going to be different than most of the folks at the networking event. All right, you got to make it a way of life, right? I know that sometimes, and we talked about introverts would rather not sit or not be out in meeting new people. That's not going to help you expand your business network and help you be successful. So you got to make it a way of life. All right. So rule number 3 is having comfortable conversations. So you got to mingle, get out of your comfort zone, and I'm going to give you some conversation starters, some small talk openers. And first impressions are important. Now, I obviously don't know everybody on the webinar in your world, but here's a good example. When I used to be in commercial insurance, and I used to have a background in commercial insurance, and I called on trucking companies, and the carrier I worked for, our policy was I had to wear a suit and tie, right? Well, when I went to a trucking company in a suit and tie, I usually didn't have a very good discussion because they felt I was part of the government. So I would take the sport coat off or the suit coat off, take the tie off, roll my sleeves up, and I would have a better discussion because the first impression was I was more on their level, all right? You have to figure out, in whatever the setting is, what makes sense with that. I know a lot of people will tell you be dressed to the nines. I understand that, but I think in certain situations that can be a turnoff, and especially in today's world, with how casual we become. So first impressions are important, but it really is more trying to understand the audience. All right, so let's talk through some of these small talk openers, and once again, when I give you these, you put them in your words so they're comfortable for you. And these are just some things that I've seen and my clients have used that have been successful. I'm not sure if we have met before. You're going to find a lot of people that you've seen at some of these networking events that you really don't know, but you've seen them a couple times. This is a great way to start the conversation. I know we've crossed paths, but so tell me about your company and what you all do. And then more specifically, I see you're with, but exactly what do you do? Or if like you've met somebody and you understand what they do and what a good client looks like, and you've met someone, man, how powerful is that at a networking event to go and say, hey, I'd like you to meet John. He does this and this, and I was telling him about your company. I think it'd be great for you guys to get together. And understand what a good client or prospect looks like for you. Because you will get asked that at some point by someone who is trying to find connections. And if you can't answer that, it's going to be hard for them to really zero in on what a good client looks like. And their head's going to go to, I don't know, I can introduce you several people, but it won't be the right people. And another example from the insurance world, I worked with larger commercial. I couldn't do anything that wasn't 50,000 premium and below. So I had to be a bigger establishment. So if I just went to my clients and said, we're at a networking event, hey, tell me someone who owns a business, they might give me a mom and pop shop that wasn't going to fit for me. It might fit for you. I'm just saying it didn't fit for me, so I got very specific. I work with clients that have over 50 employees that are, working in some type of industrial or commercial field. And I had those characteristics down pretty good that someone could say, okay, I know John or Joe over here that I can introduce you to. And you might think that limits you, but it really will focus that you're going to get someone that would be a good fit for you. Another way to start conversations, and I think a lot of you have heard the term 30-second commercial or elevator pitch, and I think that's a great way. But I want to give you a kind of an example of different ways to do it. Once again, I would say to break the pattern with it. Tell how you help people, and I'm going to give you an example here in a second. Heighten their interest. Can you tell me more? You want them thinking, can you tell me more about what you do? Not that they have it down, that you should have interest that they're going to ask you another question. So let me give you before I give you some examples, let me give you the kind of fundamentals from the Sandler view of a 30-second commercial. You should write down and enter 3 major pains or things that your company does to help. Create a capsule summary of your company focusing on the prospect's pain, some of those pains. Write an introduction, craft a benefit statement, and then you can complete your 30-second commercial. And this is homework I would ask you to do after this, to think about it in a different way. Now I'm going to give you an example of one I use on the next page. And before I do that, I'm going to give you more of a traditional one, and then I'm going to give you what I believe is a more effective one. All right? So, and keep the feedback criteria in mind as you do your commercial. Does it contain phrasing that's easily spoken, contain an introduction, capsule summary, take less than 1 minute, and address the identified pains from a prospect's point of view. So if I met you at a networking event and I'm working with Sandler, this would sound like a more traditional 30-second commercial. Hey, I'm Vince Esposito. I'm with Sandler Training. We are a global training outfit with 250 trainers around the world, and our information is translated into 19 different languages. We've been around since 1965, and we've had a lot of experience working with all types of companies, right? So that might be a typical 30-second commercial where I focus on our size, our longevity, how long we've been in the market, right? But the reality is people that you're talking to, especially in a networking setting, that's not really important to them, and that's not going to help them figure out what's a good fit for you. So the next slide I'm going to show you, actually this is right out of my Microsoft Word, that this is what I use as a 30-second commercial when I'm cold calling or in a network setting, and I might change it a little depending on the setting, but here it is. I own a company here in Louisville, Sandler Training. Probably never heard of us. We work with business owners and executives on revenue generation through Salesforce development, sales management training, and usually when our clients, we work with them, we hear things like, I've got a good business, it's grown steadily over the years, we've had good people who are committed to success, but for whatever reason, they're not getting out in front of enough new prospects on a consistent enough basis, and we're not seeing revenue grow at the rate we need. Or they tell me they're getting in front of a lot of people, we're active in our marketplace, but it seems like sales cycles taking a lot longer and deals are slipping through the cracks, and we're not always sure why. And other times they tell me that they're just not closing deals, that they're closing deals, but they're not at the margins that they used to have. I'm not sure if you know anyone or if this affects your business, but if any of that sounds familiar, maybe it would be worth it for us to set up a time to talk. And then if they say yes, then a couple more questions. What sounds most familiar? Or can you give me an example? Any idea of the impact of that? If they say no, then throw out a few that you know that you've worked with and helped people with. But do you see the difference from the first one when I was really talking features and benefits about our size and how many trainers there were and how long we've been doing it? And I got to tell you, when I work with clients and we do a face-to-face training, a lot of times I'll start with, all right, give me your best elevator pitch or 30-second commercial. And they'll go into, my company's been here for 50 years. We have the best service in the industry. That stuff, it's generic. Everybody says that. You need to try and set yourself apart and make it more clear on what you all do to help people. And then you're going to make people more comfortable in referring to you. All right? I know there's a lot of information on this slide. If you have questions, once again, my email is vesposito, E-S-P-O-S-I-T-O, @sandler.com. And at the end, I'll give you my cell phone number to call me if you have questions. All right. The other part of it is the 3-foot rule. And I'm assuming you all have heard of this. If not, it's really, at any given time, 3 foot around you, there's usually some people. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to do this in just pure social settings, but my gosh, if you're there, why not ask somebody what they do for a living after a little bit? I would maybe not start with that, but maybe ask why they're there type of thing, and what brings them there. Is it they're there watching their kid, or they're there with friends, whatever the case might be. But then you can see, and if they're open to it, you'll move right into that 30-second commercial opportunity. All right, so rule number 4, and this is a key one, come up with a network plan. You got to do it. You know, it's the Nike commercial, just do it. Manage your behavior, not your results. And you remember early on I talked about following through on behaviors. I'm a big believer that if you set behaviors and you follow through, results will come. If we focus too much on the results and just trying to always hit that home run, we may not do the key behaviors that need to push the deal through, and we won't win as many as we thought. And at Sandler, we talk about a cookbook, and below is a sample cookbook where, you know, it's up to you to decide what the key behaviors are. But for me, I know in a given month that if I'm not having, you know, 10 to 15 face-to-face meetings, I'm not going to get the type of sales prospects or the opportunities that I want, okay? So I focus on using my time, and I'll set up where I have walk-ins. I'm going to set an area that I'm going to do some walk-ins. Tuesdays I'll do dials. And it's going to look different. January is going to look a little different, but I'll try and set that calendar, and that's my whole key here with you, is you got to set a plan, all right? Now the key is your plan shouldn't be, I'm going to do $500,000 this month. I know we have to have a scorecard and have to have dollar amounts, but what are the behaviors you have to do to get to that $500,000? Is it seeing 10 to 15 people in a month? Is it seeing 20 to 30 people? You have to answer that for yourself, but whatever it is, that should be the behaviors that you put in your cookbook that you're going to follow. And if you do them consistently, you will have success. Another good example of that is right now in January, if you belong to a gym, it's extremely overcrowded because everybody says, I'm going to lose weight in 2017. That's my goal. And they sign up at a gym, they go for a couple weeks, and then you don't see them anymore. I've been going to the YMCA here locally for years, and we joke, the regulars, how, yeah, right now locker space is tough, but in about 6 weeks, it'll be clear sailing. And that's because they don't set a behavioral plan. They just want to get results. I want to lose weight, and they're going to be ups and downs with that. And if they don't set up a plan that I'm going to go 3 days a week the first week, or maybe 2 days, because you know you're going to be sore, and then build on that, it's doomed to failure. Same thing with networking. You got to set a plan. So set a goal on how many you will do per month, how many events you're going to do per month. How many new conversations will you have at the event? And once again, I'm a big believer not just throwing a card out, but actual conversations. And you have to set, is it 1, is it 5? Obviously 1's probably not a good number, but somewhere between 2 to 5 conversations, depending on the event, might be good to focus on that you want to have. And by conversation, I mean you understand what that person does and what a good prospect looks like, and you've had the opportunity to tell them. And how many connections can you make for others? I'm sorry, I should say for others. So think about, as you're going into a networking event, I want to make 2 connections for people here, or whatever it might be. And the more you do this, obviously the better handle you'll have on these numbers. And that's a key. Set the behaviors, but then check them. And if they need to be tweaked, tweak them. You know, because this may be new for some of you where you haven't really set up a networking plan. So in your area and your, you know, where you're at on the spectrum right now, I can't tell you, is it going to be 5 conversations? You have to figure that out, but be willing to adjust based on your success. Okay, so rule number 5. Think about what motivates action for you. And once again, it becomes personal. What motivates you? You know, understand your pain. What is driving you to go out there and be successful. Because as we said earlier, in sales, you're going to hit roadblocks, and that role is going to have some adversity. So you have to be prepared for it. Understand the therapy principle. Like, understand what you're trying to accomplish. A friend of mine, and how you go about doing it. A friend of mine is a therapist, and when I talk to him about his work, he tells me that he really doesn't do any of the behavioral change for people. He just listens and will challenge, and that's what you have to do as you're looking at what motivates you. All right, be honest with yourself and challenge that. And understand your ideal client profile. I mentioned it earlier that you want to know that from people, and you need excuse me, there's one of the coughing fits. You're going to need to know your client, your ideal client profile, and I've got an example of one for me, once again, to just give you an idea of what I'm talking about. All right, so here's an ideal client profile. You know, we help companies, organizations are committed to growing their business to the next level through training, coaching, process development. There are owners or CEOs, presidents. So you notice I'm not saying salespeople, right? And not that I haven't worked with salespeople, but that's really not my ideal client, because a lot of them think, you know, they got it down pretty good and they don't need any help, all right? If they're commissioned, that might be a little different, but that's usually what I run into. You know, how would you describe them? I describe them to give my networking partner someone to look for: strong, open-minded, growth-oriented, decisive winners. They're really looking to move forward. And then here's the description of business. You know, successful, local, Kentucky, Southern Indiana, sales of $1 million to $30 million, 10 to 300 employees, 3 to 30 people involved with sales or business development. That's, I mean, I do bigger. I don't really do smaller, but I have some clients that are even larger than that have, one has 400 people, another one has 500. But this is really where my sweet spot is, where I can really add value. And that's where I like to focus, obviously, first. Not to say I won't work with the other folks, but that's what I try to focus as my ideal client. You have to decide what that is for you. And then the business categories that have been successful, I even give them industry examples. And then once again, I try to give them some of the pains that these folks might be facing. Now, I don't want them selling, but I want them to have a pretty good, selling for me, but I want them to have a pretty good idea what a good client looks like. And I would suggest that you all do that as well. All right. You know, and I think this is not an old, I mean, this is an old type of theory, building dream boards, and you can now put them on your computer. If it's a corner office, if it's a sports car, if it's spending time with family or vacation, or, you know, in Kentucky, horses are big. You know, whatever it is for you that motivates you, you need to build your wall and have it on your screen or somewhere you can put it to see it, to keep you focused. All right, rule number 6, and then like I said, we got 8 rules. This is a key with networking. Follow-up is what separates. If you're at a networking event and there's a lot of people there, you're probably not going to have the time to really spend quality time with each new person you meet. So, you know, follow up. Tell them, hey, you know, it sounds like I'd like to get to know you better. Let me follow up with you, and we'll set up a time where maybe we can grab coffee, right? Do it within 3 business days. Don't wait, you know, 2 weeks later to try and follow up. Handwritten notes. If you have a great conversation with someone at a networking event and you want to have a meeting with, send a note. Think about in today's world in electronics, text, email, how this will be different for you to send a note. I know when I get notes from folks that, you know, I wasn't expecting, saying thank you, I remember those people. And they're going to be someone I'm going to reach out to. and then have the follow-up call for a meeting, set a meeting, and as I said, coffee or lunch if you just met them, depending on, how closely aligned you are. But coffee is usually non-threatening and gives you both the opportunity to, if it's not going well, to move on quicker. But set up a meeting. Or if it's a call, if they're not right in your area, then do a call. That's fine too. But follow up from all these different discussions, the ones that you believe make sense. Okay, rule number 7, expand your reach. And by that I mean, I don't know if any of you are in BNI, Business Networking International groups. They have a pretty strong structure on giving referrals and networking. Depending on what target market you're looking for, may not be the perfect fit for you, but they're out there. Google BNI. In your areas, I'm sure there's a few chapters. Here in Louisville, I know of 10 off the top of my head, and there could be more than that. If that's not available, form your own leads group. And that's what I've done more than BNI. I have my own leads group that meets here and we're looking for more of a CEO or owner type thing, and we have people in there that do outsource marketing, do human resources, do legal work, and myself from a sales coaching, maybe some IT networking type thing as well. But it's people that are going to be dealing with the people that I want to talk to, and that's what I formed the leads group around. You can do the same thing. The other thing that I do differently than like a BNI is we don't meet every week because I think that's too time consuming. We meet every other week. And we really put an emphasis on trying to get to know each other in that group, because that's the other key with networking. The more comfortable you are with somebody, the more apt that you're to work with them, as I said from the very beginning, and or to refer business to and from. Okay? Get involved in business or community organizations. Now, I'm not trying to preach to you, but if whatever the business areas, and that might go back to your ideal client. Some of you may have some specific niches that you're very good in, or you have expertise, or the companies you represent have expertise. Then find out the business organizations that go with them. Get involved with them. Community organizations. Aside from just being a good community member, you're going to meet a lot of people. And I would make the suggestion, not just get in the organization, try and be active. And I know that takes some time, but that's when you truly get people opening up and trusting you, which once again is something I said in the very beginning. And then obviously social media revolution. You all should be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all the different platforms that you can have people that will get familiar with your name and what you do. Okay? There's no reason today not to. And I know people say, well, I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to see all that stuff. I get it. And you don't have to get involved in it, but it does give you a presence. LinkedIn is more of a business to business. That's a little more professional. There's not as much political commentary on it, but whatever it is, you need to get more focused on using those platforms to help grow your business. Okay, so rule number 8, the last rule, is make the decision in 2017 to do it. Make it real. Say that, okay, for the next 60, 90 days, you pick the time period, and it could be 30, but 30, 60, 90 days, I want to go to X amount of networking events. And then figure out which ones you're going to go to. And I know there's a million of them in different communities, so, do a little research beforehand with Google to make sure it's a good fit for you. That should be challenging. Growth is challenging. I get it. But like I said, you can't climb a mountain without taking the first step, and you need to take that first step towards growth. And build yourself accountability success traps. If if you're lucky to be in a situation where you can do that with a boss, that's great. But I'm focused. I talk more about having other professionals. As an example, I work with some Sandler trainers that aren't here in my market that we hold each other accountable. So we say we're going to go to 5 networking events in a month. At the end of the month, and we talk on regular intervals, we'll ask each other how we did. And it's human nature to put stuff aside, but if you answer to somebody, usually there's a better chance you're going to do it. And I would suggest you guys find people that you're comfortable with that you can set up some accountability success traps. And don't look at accountability as a 4-letter word, because it will help you make money, especially in sales. Help you make money. Now, I know there's some managers out there have taken that and beat people over the head with it. That's on them. As long as you set up your behaviors and you hold yourself accountable to them, you're going to be very successful. I guarantee it. So what I want you to go away from here is think about lessons learned that we just went through the 8 points. Now I've got a couple more slides to give you a couple more points, but I want you to keep that mindset. And take out a piece of paper and jot it down. And then if it facilitates a question that you need to ask me, feel free to do that. As I said, I'm going to give out my number here at the end, and you can feel free to call me. All right, so to kind of sum it all back up, I think, we look at it as a triangle, and we see that, and this is where I talked about batting average. You got behavior, you got attitude and technique. And when I sit in front of live audiences and I ask them, of these 3, which is most important? 95 to 98% of the time, I hear people say attitude. All right? And I take a little issue with that. I think you have to have a good attitude because it's going to make you stay focused. But I believe, and I've seen in practice, people that set up behaviors, realistic behaviors, and adhere to them, it helps their attitude because you see success and you see achievement through doing the behaviors. Going back to the gym analogy again, if you say that you're going to go 2 times the first week, then I'm going to go to 3 times the second week, then I'm going to work up to 4 times, and then I'm going to be consistent at 4 times. Anyone who's done that, you will know that you're going to get stronger or have more endurance based on what your goal is because it's setting up the behaviors. And obviously, if you're having achievement and you feel good about it, it's going to help your attitude. Can't do anything but help your attitude. All right, so the single most powerful thought, and this is working with some of the top producers, of the 4% of prospectors in the world, is they absolutely believe they can help you. And that's how you have to go into these networking events, that if you find the right person, you absolutely know that you can help them. Performance is not an outcome, it's a discipline. And that's that consistency that I was talking about, getting those behaviors and staying consistent and true to them. If you focus on the behaviors, the results will come. So once again, at Sandler, we empower business professionals to achievement. There's Sandler training in your local area, and you can feel free to call me or look them up. I can direct you to a trainer if you'd like, if you have questions, but we focus on Salesforce development, ongoing reinforcement, sales management training. We also do testing and profiling for recruitment, sales results partners, on-site boot camps, marketing consulting. Excuse me, I'm coughing a little bit again, but here's my number down at the bottom, 502-836-4700. Thank you so much for participating. Remember, my email once again is vesposito@sandler.com.